Commander Sarah Chen stood motionless before the Galactic Defense Council, her crisp blue uniform a stark contrast against the sweeping crystalline architecture of the Grand Hall. Above her, 12 alien counselors peered down from their elevated platforms, their expressions ranging from amusement to outright derision. The massive holographic display behind them showed the steady advance of the Kronax Empire's forces, red arrows cutting through star systems like a crimson tide. "Let me ensure I understand correctly," Counselor Vexthor rumbled, his scaled skin shifting colors in barely contained mirth. "Earth proposes to defend Nexus 7, a crucial strategic outpost, with only 100 soldiers." His translator barely managed to contain the musical undertones of laughter in his voice. "That is correct, Counselor," Chen replied, her calm voice carrying through the chamber. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, stance relaxed but professional. The council chamber's perfect acoustics carried the growing whispers of the gathered diplomatic corps, representatives from 100 worlds who had come to witness the emergency session. High Counselor Zena, her crystalline form catching the light from the system's twin suns, leaned forward. "Commander Chen, perhaps something has been lost in translation. The Kronax fleet approaching Nexus 7 contains 50,000 troops. Their smallest military unit is 500 strong. Even their maintenance crews outnumber your proposed force." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. Chen's expression remained unchanged, though her dark eyes tracked each reaction, each dismissive gesture. She had expected this response, had planned for it. "With respect, High Counselor," Chen responded, activating her own smaller holographic display. "Quality has a quantity all its own." The image showed Nexus 7, a seemingly modest space station wrapped around an asteroid rich in rare minerals. "We've analyzed the station's infrastructure, its systems, and its unique properties. 100 is the optimal number for our strategy." "Strategy?" Counselor Drax snorted, his massive frame shaking. The only strategy with such numbers would be surrender. "The Nexians themselves have requested 10,000 defenders at minimum." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "The Nexians haven't seen what humans can do with limited resources. We specialize in asymmetric approaches to seemingly impossible challenges." "This isn't some minor border skirmish, Commander," Vexthor interjected. "The Kronax are consuming entire systems. They've never failed to take a target once they commit their forces. Your 100 soldiers would be less than a rounding error in their casualties." "Then you have nothing to lose by accepting our offer," Chen replied. "If we fail, you'll be no worse off than if we never tried. But if we succeed," she let the statement hang in the air. The council chamber fell silent for a moment. High Counselor Zena's crystalline form chimed softly as she moved. "You humans have an interesting saying that my cultural database recently acquired. Beggars can't be choosers. We find ourselves in such a position." "Very well, Commander Chen. Your proposal is accepted, if only because we have no better options at present." As the chamber erupted in a mix of laughter and heated discussions, Chen bowed slightly and turned to leave. Her enhanced hearing caught snippets of conversation from the diplomatic corps. "Suicide mission. Human madness. They'll be atomized." But one voice, belonging to a small Nexian observer, caught her attention. "Did you see her eyes? She didn't look like someone planning to fail." Chen's smile widened slightly as she walked out of the chamber. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The Nexus 7 maintenance chief, Daleks, watched with increasing curiosity as Commander Chen ran her hand along what appeared to be an unremarkable wall panel. His crystalline antennae twitched as she pressed her ear against the surface, eyes closed in concentration. After 3 days of observing the human's peculiar behavior, he couldn't contain himself any longer. "Commander, that section was thoroughly scanned by the last 4 garrison forces," Dalek said, his translator converting his crystalline chimes into standard Galactic. "It's just a support wall." Chen opened her eyes and smiled. "Nothing is just anything, Chief Daleks. Listen." She produced a small device that emitted a soft ping, and the wall resonated with an unexpected hollow echo. Your station is full of stories, if you know how to listen. Dalex's antennae straightened in surprise as Chen's engineering team quickly removed the panel, revealing a forgotten maintenance tunnel. Ancient service drones, dormant for centuries, lined the walls like sleeping sentinels. Remarkable. Lieutenant Santos, Chen's chief engineer, whispered as she scanned the drones. These are precursor maintenance units. The station must have been built over an ancient outpost. Her handheld analyzer projected streams of data that made Dalex's crystalline form shimmer with excitement. Chen nodded, making notes on her datapad. And this is just the beginning. Chief Dalex, how well do you know the station's atmospheric processing systems? I've managed them for 15 cycles, he responded proudly. Every fluctuation, every pattern. But have you ever wondered why the tertiary processing unit creates a localized magnetic anomaly every 47 minutes? Chen interrupted gently. Dalex's antennae drooped slightly. I wasn't aware it did. Over the next few hours, Chen's team revealed dozens of similar discoveries. They found maintenance systems that could be reprogrammed, atmospheric processors that generated unusual energy signatures, and ancient communication arrays that still held surprising functionality. Each discovery was methodically documented, analyzed, and added to what Chen called their possibility map. During their lunch break, Dalex observed the humans sharing their simple rations in one of the station's observation lounges. The station's huge windows framed the asteroid field beyond, fragments of space rock dancing in the light of the system's twin suns. I don't understand, he admitted to Chen. Other garrison forces focused on fortifying defense points, installing weapon systems. Your team spends time studying maintenance tunnels and atmospheric anomalies. Chen finished her coffee, her eyes tracking the movement of the asteroids outside. Tell me, Chief Dalex, what's the smallest thing that's ever caused you a major problem? He thought for a moment. Last cycle, a micrometeorite, no bigger than a grain of sand, punched through a coolant line. It took 3 days to repair the cascade of system failures that followed. Exactly, Chen smiled. The smallest things can have the biggest impacts. Traditional military thinking focuses on matching force with force. But humans, we learned long ago that understanding the environment, the systems, the small details, that's often more valuable than any amount of firepower. A gentle chime from Chen's datapad interrupted them. Lieutenant Santos' voice came through. Commander, you need to see this. We found something in the lower maintenance hub, something that changes everything. Chen stood, her expression brightening with anticipation. Care to join us, Chief Dalex? I have a feeling this discovery might help you see your station in a whole new light. Dalex found himself hurrying to keep up with her stride, his crystalline form humming with a strange mix of anxiety and excitement. For the first time since hearing about the approaching Kronex fleet, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. The docking bay of Nexus 7 buzzed with confused murmurs as the human supply ships unloaded their cargo. Station personnel and resident Nexians gathered to witness the arrival of Earth's defensive force, only to stare in bewilderment at what appeared to be maintenance equipment and construction materials. These are meant to defend us against the Kronex, a Nexian engineer named Tixley asked, her crystalline form dimming with disappointment as she watched humans unpack what looked like standard repair drones. Where are the plasma cannons? The shield generators? The battle mechs? Lieutenant Santos smiled as she calibrated one of the repair drones. Watch this, she said, making a few final adjustments. The drone hummed to life, its ordinary maintenance arms suddenly shifting configuration. What had appeared to be welding tools transformed into a complex sensor array, while its repair lasers recalibrated into precision targeting systems. Every tool serves at least 3 purposes, Santos explained to the now fascinated Nexian. This isn't just a repair drone. It's a mobile security system, environmental analyzer, and communication relay. We believe in efficiency over ostentation. Across the bay, Commander Chen supervised as her team integrated their equipment into the station's systems. Their uniforms, which had drawn snickers for looking surprisingly low-tech, revealed their true nature. The fabric shifted colors to match the station's walls, while embedded sensors monitored environmental conditions and shared tactical data. "Your armor appears inadequate," Daleks observed, watching a human technician work near a high-energy conduit wearing what looked like simple coveralls. The technician, Specialist Zhang, tapped his sleeve. "Try scanning it," he suggested. Daleks' sensors showed multiple layers of advanced materials that adapted to threats: heat shields, radiation protection, and impact absorption, all wrapped in an unassuming package. "But why disguise your capabilities?" Daleks asked, his crystalline form reflecting his confusion. Chen joined them, carrying what appeared to be a simple toolkit. Humanity learned long ago that appearing harmless is often more advantageous than displaying strength. The Kronax expect grand displays of military might. They won't be looking for maintenance drones that can reconfigure into defense platforms, or construction lasers that double as precision targeting systems. As if to demonstrate her point, Chen opened her toolkit. Inside, ordinary-looking tools transformed into sophisticated analysis equipment. A wrench contained a quantum computer, a screwdriver housed advanced scanning technology, and simple work gloves incorporated neural interface systems. "We've studied how the Kronax fight," Chen continued, assembling a device from seemingly random parts. "They rely on overwhelming force and advanced military technology. They've never lost to a conventional defense. So we won't give them one to fight against." The device in her hands hummed to life, projecting a holographic overlay of the station's systems. Maintenance tunnels discovered earlier glowed with new purpose, showing how they could be used for station-wide resource distribution and tactical movement. "Every tool, every discovery, every system works together," Chen explained as the hologram highlighted key points throughout the station. "We're not building a defense network. We're awakening one that's been here all along, hidden in plain sight." A sudden alert chimed through the station. Lieutenant Santos rushed over, her expression urgent. "Commander, long-range sensors just picked up the Kronax fleet. They're moving faster than expected. We have less than 48 hours. Chen nodded, unsurprised. "Perfect. Just enough time to finish our preparations." She turned to Daleks, who noticed her calm smile hadn't wavered. "Chief, I believe it's time to show you what these simple tools can really do." Around them, the human team moved with practiced precision, their ordinary equipment continuing to reveal extraordinary capabilities. The station itself seemed to pulse with new energy as each system came online, transforming from a vulnerable outpost into something the Kronax would never expect: a living, breathing defense system orchestrated by the most underestimated species in the galaxy. From the central control hub of Nexus 7, Commander Chen watched as dozens of holographic displays showed the station's transformation in real time. Maintenance drones, reprogrammed with human ingenuity and guided by Nexian expertise, wove new neural pathways through the station's infrastructure. "It's like watching the station wake up," Tixley whispered, her crystalline form glowing with excitement as she monitored the integration from her control station. Her small fingers danced across the interface, coordinating with the human technicians who had trained her on the new systems. Lieutenant Santos' voice came through the comm system. "Commander, the ancient maintenance tunnels are now fully mapped and integrated. The precursor drones are responding to our programming beyond expectations. They're not just accepting commands. They're learning, adapting." Chen nodded, studying the complex web of interconnected systems displayed before her. The station's original designers built more than they knew. They created the foundation. We're just helping it reach its potential. Daleks entered the control hub, followed by a team of Nexian engineers, their diminutive forms practically vibrating with enthusiasm. "Commander, you need to see this. The atmospheric processors. They're not just managing air quality anymore. When we link them to your sensor network." He pressed a few controls, and a new holographic overlay appeared. The station's atmospheric system had become an invisible web of sensors, capable of detecting the slightest disturbance in air pressure, temperature, and composition. Perfect, Chen smiled. Every breath of air becomes our eyes and ears. How are the maintenance robots adapting to their new programming? Better than we hoped, Tixley chimed in, pulling up another display. They've fully integrated with the station's neural network. Each one can now function independently or as part of a coordinated swarm. They're already anticipating maintenance needs before alerts even trigger. The station's lights flickered briefly as another system came online. Specialist Zhang's voice crackled through the comm. Environmental control grid is now linked to the main network. We can adjust local conditions in any section within seconds. The Nexian engineering team's modifications to the thermal regulators were brilliant. We got precision control down to the individual chamber level. Chen watched as her small force of humans worked seamlessly with the Nexian crews throughout the station. Where other species saw the Nexians' small size as a limitation, she had recognized it as an asset. They could access maintenance spaces too small for most races. Their crystalline bodies could detect energy fluctuations naturally, and their innate understanding of the station's systems proved invaluable. 26 hours until the Kronax fleet arrives, Santos reported from engineering. All primary systems are integrated. Secondary systems at 93% coordination. The station's responding faster than our simulations predicted. They won't expect this, Dalek said, his voice mixing pride and amazement. The Kronax think they're approaching a simple outpost defended by a handful of humans. But we're not just defending the station anymore, are we, Commander? Chen shook her head, watching as another section of the holographic display lit up with newly coordinated systems. No, we're not. We're not even fighting them in the traditional sense. The station itself will do that for us. Every corridor, every chamber, every system working in perfect harmony. A soft chime indicated another successful system integration. Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched humans and Nexians working together, turning what everyone else saw as a primitive outpost into something unprecedented. A living, thinking defensive organism. Commander, Tixley called out, her form pulsing with excitement. The quantum communication array is showing something unusual. The energy signatures we discovered in the ancient tunnels, they're resonating with the new network. It's like the station is singing. Then let's make sure, Chen replied, her eyes fixed on the approaching deadline, that when the Kronax arrive, they hear every note of our symphony. The Kronax fleet emerged from hyperspace in a display of military precision, their massive warships arranged in the infamous Spear of Conquest formation. From Nexus 7's control hub, Commander Chen watched calmly as 40 capital ships took up attack positions around the station. Incoming transmission, Tixley announced, her crystalline form shimming with nervous energy. The Kronax command ship is hailing us. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Fleet Commander Grokmar, his armored form filling the screen. This is your first and final warning, his translator boomed. Surrender Nexus 7, or face immediate annihilation. Chen smiled politely. This is Commander Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We respectfully decline your offer, though we'd be happy to discuss alternative arrangements. Grokmar's expression shifted to one of bewilderment, then amusement. Your bravery is noted, human, but clearly misplaced. Our scans show no defensive fleet, no weapon emplacements. You have, he paused, checking his data, 100 personnel. Against my 40,000. Quality over quantity, Commander Grokmar. Though I should warn you, our sensor readings suggest your port navigation arrays might need recalibration. They're showing a 0.2% variance. What? That's impossible. Our systems are. Grokmar's voice trailed off as his officers frantically checked their instruments. Throughout the Kronax fleet, navigation systems suddenly reported conflicting data, each ship's computers detecting slightly different gravitational readings from the asteroid field. Lieutenant Santos's voice came through Chen's private comm. Atmospheric processors are creating localized pressure variations. The precursor drones are emitting false gravitational signatures exactly as planned. Their sensor arrays are already confused. The first wave of Kronax landing craft launched, their formation perfect, until they hit the outer marker of Nexus 7 space. Environmental controls subtly altered air density in seemingly random patterns. Landing trajectories that had been calculated to perfection suddenly required constant adjustment. Warning, Tixley announced with barely contained excitement. Multiple Kronax vessels reporting navigation system errors. Their formation is breaking down. Chen watched as the mighty Kronax fleet began to drift out of alignment. Each ship's computers, receiving slightly different environmental readings, attempted to compensate independently. The result was chaos disguised as minor technical issues. Fascinating, Daleks observed from his station. The maintenance drones are creating a field of conflicting data. Every attempt they make to scan us gives them different results. The first Kronax boarding shuttles reached their designated landing bays, only to find the massive doors mysteriously malfunctioning. Some opened too slowly, others too quickly, forcing the pilots to abort and recalculate. Maintenance systems reported random errors, environmental controls created unpredictable air currents, and guidance beacons transmitted coordinates that shifted by microseconds. "This is impossible," Grockmer growled through the still-open channel. "What trickery is this?" "No trickery," Chen replied calmly. "Perhaps your systems are experiencing some technical difficulties. We'd be happy to send over a maintenance team to assist." The Kronax commander's face darkened. Launched the second wave. All ships, full advance. But the second wave fared no better. Automated guidance systems failed to account for subtle atmospheric changes. Landing bay doors operated at irregular intervals. Even the station's artificial gravity seemed to hiccup in ways that defied prediction. "Commander," Santos reported, "the Kronax are deploying their engineering cores. They're trying to override our systems." Chen nodded, watching as hundreds of Kronax engineers attempted to breach the station's network. Just as expected. "Tixley, would you like to show them why that's a bad idea?" The young Nexian's form brightened with delight as she activated the next phase of their defense. Throughout the station, thousands of maintenance protocols awakened simultaneously, each running at slightly different frequencies, creating a digital maze that would keep the Kronax engineers chasing shadows for hours. Fleet Commander Grockmar's tactical display was a cascade of warning indicators. 6 hours into what should have been a simple conquest, his mighty armada had achieved precisely nothing. Every attempt to establish a beachhead on Nexus 7 had been thwarted not by defensive fire, but by an endless series of maddening technical malfunctions. Inside Nexus 7's control hub, Commander Chen orchestrated her defense with the precision of a conductor leading a symphony. "Status report," she called out, watching as another wave of Kronax shuttles struggled with inexplicably uncooperative landing bays. "Their engineering corps is still trying to breach our systems," Tixley reported, her crystalline form pulsing with barely contained amusement. "They've attempted 15 different algorithms to override our controls. The maintenance protocols keep rerouting them through recursive loops." Lieutenant Santos's voice crackled through the comm. "The precursor drones are performing beyond expectations. Every time the Kronax adapt to one sensor ghost, we create 3 more. Their targeting systems can't distinguish between real and false signatures anymore." Chen nodded, studying the holographic display of the station. Hundreds of maintenance drones, now reprogrammed as sensor platforms, wove intricate patterns through Nexus 7's infrastructure. Each drone emitted carefully calibrated signals that played havoc with Kronax targeting systems. "Commander," Daleks called out excitedly. "The atmospheric processors just caught their supply ships in another gravity eddy. Their whole logistics chain is falling apart." The display showed Kronax supply vessels struggling against invisible currents. The station's environmental systems, guided by Nexian expertise, created subtle variations in local space that played havoc with automated navigation. Their frustration is growing, Santos observed. They're burning through fuel and supplies just trying to maintain formation. 3 of their capital ships have reported critical system errors from constant compensation attempts. Chen watched as another Kronax boarding attempt dissolved into confusion. The station's neural network, enhanced by human programming and Nexian intuition, predicted and countered every move before it could succeed. Incoming transmission, Tixley announced. It's Commander Grokmar again. The Kronax commander's face appeared on screen, his composure noticeably strained. What sorcery is this, human? What weapons are you using against us? Weapons, Chen replied innocently. We're simply maintaining station operations, Commander. Though our maintenance systems do seem to be experiencing some unusual behavior patterns. Perhaps there's a solar flare interfering with electronics. As if on cue, the station's communication array emitted a burst of carefully modulated static, causing every Kronax ship's sensors to recalibrate simultaneously. The resulting cascade of system resets rippled through their fleet like a digital wave. Impossible, Grokmar snarled. No mere maintenance systems cold. Warning, Daleks interrupted, his voice urgent. They're attempting to override environmental controls in Section 7. Chen smiled. Initiate Protocol Maze Runner. Throughout the station, maintenance tunnels that had been mapped and modified over the past days came alive. Automated systems rerouted power flows in random patterns. Environmental controls created localized atmospheric inversions. Even the artificial gravity fluctuated in precisely calculated sequences. Their engineers are losing track of their own teams, Tixley reported gleefully. Every time they map one section, the configuration changes. They're getting lost in their own navigation data. The station's neural network, now fully awakened and integrated with both human and Nexian modifications, had become a living puzzle. Each system adapted and evolved, creating an ever-changing maze that defied traditional military logic. Do you know what the Kronax's greatest weakness is? Chen asked, watching as another coordinated assault dissolved into confusion. They think in straight lines. Force meets force. Numbers overcome opposition. But we've turned this station into a circle. There is no front line, no point of attack, just an endless loop of cause and effect. A new alert chimed through the control hub. Commander, Santos called out. Their fleet's fuel reserves are dropping below critical levels. They've expended more resources in 6 hours of failed approaches than they usually use in a week of planetary conquest. Chen nodded, satisfied. Send them our maintenance report. Show them exactly how much energy they're wasting. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemy. She paused, watching as frustration and confusion spread through the Kronax fleet, but in letting them defeat themselves. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber was silent except for the soft hum of holographic displays, showing the incredible scene unfolding at Nexus 7. High Counselor Zena's crystalline form sparkled with undisguised amazement as she watched the mighty Kronax fleet falter before an enemy they couldn't even properly engage. 12 hours, Counselor Vexthor murmured, his scales shifting colors in disbelief. The longest any outpost has ever lasted against a full Kronax fleet was 4 hours, and they haven't even fired a shot. Inside Nexus 7's control hub, Commander Chen monitored the situation with the same calm demeanor she'd maintained since the beginning. The holographic displays showed the Kronax fleet in disarray, their perfect formation now a scattered mess of ships struggling against invisible forces. Status update, she called out, watching as another group of Kronax engineering teams retreated from yet another failed attempt to breach the station's systems. Their fuel reserves are at 28%, Lieutenant Santos reported from her station. They'd burned through 72% of their supplies, just trying to maintain position against our atmospheric controls. 3 of their capital ships are reporting critical system failures from constant gravitational compensation. Tixley's crystalline form pulsed with excitement as she added, their communication networks are completely compromised. Every time they establish a new frequency, our maintenance drones create interference patterns that force them to switch again. Their fleet coordination has broken down to individual ship commands. The main screen lit up with another incoming transmission. Fleet Commander Grokmar's face appeared, his composure completely shattered. "This is impossible," he growled. "We are the Kronax. We have never failed to take a target. What sorcery are you using against us?" Chen smiled politely. "No sorcery, Commander. Just efficient station maintenance. Though I must say, your fleet's presence has given our systems quite a workout. Would you like to see the efficiency reports? Your ship's energy expenditure data is particularly fascinating." The Kronax commander's expression darkened as his tactical officer whispered something in his ear. You're draining us," he realized. "Every maneuver, every attempted landing, every system reset. We're just burning resources." "An interesting observation," Chen replied. "Our station's systems do seem to have that effect on uncoordinated approaches. Perhaps a strategic withdrawal would be advisable, before your fleet's reserves drop below the level needed for a safe return journey." In the council chamber, the gathered representatives watched in awe as the Kronax fleet began to retreat. Not in a rush of defeat, but in the slow, stumbling manner of a giant that had exhausted itself fighting shadows. "Remarkable," Daleks observed from his station. "They never even realized the true scope of what we did they?" Chen shook her head. "They were looking for weapons, for defensive systems, for something they could fight. Instead, we turned their own strength against them. Every attempt to overwhelm us just drained more of their resources." The Galactic Council chamber erupted in excited discussion as the Kronax fleet limped away from Nexus 7. Councillor Drax, who had laughed loudest at the human proposal, now leaned forward intently. "They didn't just defend the station," he rumbled. "They revealed a fundamental flaw in Kronax military doctrine. No species has ever—" He paused, searching for words. High Councillor Zena completed his thought. "No species has ever defeated the Kronax by making them defeat themselves. These humans, they don't just think differently. They make us see everything differently." Back on Nexus 7, Chen watched the retreating fleet with satisfaction. "Tixley, please prepare a complete system efficiency report for the Galactic Council. I think they'll be particularly interested in how a maintenance crew of 100 managed to exhaust a conquest fleet of 40,000 without firing a single shot." The young Nexian's form brightened with pride as she began compiling the data. Around them, the station hummed with renewed energy, its integrated systems working in perfect harmony, a testament to what could be achieved when ingenuity triumphed over brute force. The silence that followed the Kronax retreat was deafening, almost surreal. On Nexus 7's control hub, Commander Chen sat back in her chair, fingers drumming gently on the console. Her mind raced through the implications of what had just transpired. The Kronax had been defeated without a single shot fired, but what would this victory mean? Would it alter the balance of power in the galaxy, or would it simply shift the Kronax's attention to something more dangerous? "Commander," Lieutenant Santos said, breaking Chen's reverie. "We're receiving a new transmission. It's encrypted." Chen raised an eyebrow. "From whom?" "Unknown," Santos replied, a note of hesitation in her voice. "But the signal's coming from beyond the edge of the system. It's strange. It doesn't match any known communications protocol." Chen's mind clicked into action. The Kronax may have retreated, but she knew better than to believe it was truly over. She leaned forward. "Patch it through." The screen flickered, and a new figure appeared. The being was humanoid in shape, but radiated an aura of deep darkness, its features obscured by an impenetrable hood. Its voice was smooth, but carried an undercurrent of something ancient and far more dangerous than any species Chen had encountered. "Commander Chen, we've been watching." "Impressive tactics, human," the figure said, its tone both curious and menacing. "But you must understand, this is not over. Not yet." Chen's pulse quickened. This wasn't the Kronex, nor any species she recognized. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. "We are the Ascendants," the figure replied, the name sending a chill through Chen's spine. "We are the true power in this galaxy, and your defeat of the Kronex has drawn our attention. Do you think you can stand against us?" Chen's mind whirred, her thoughts scrambling to make sense of the threat. She'd heard rumors of such a faction, a secretive, elusive group known only in whispers, with the power to sway entire star systems from the shadows, but they had never been confirmed. "Why show yourselves now?" she asked, standing tall despite the rising sense of danger. "If you're so powerful, why bother with us?" The Ascendant's voice was like a dark melody. "Because, Commander, you've awakened something. The Kronex were but pawns in a much larger game. Your ingenuity, your unwillingness to rely on brute force, it is an anomaly we cannot ignore. And we do not like anomalies." Chen narrowed her eyes. "What do you want?" "We want you to understand that power comes in many forms. And though you may have won this battle, you are not ready for the war that is coming." The Ascendant's figure seemed to pulse with dark energy, and for a moment, Chen could feel the weight of centuries of knowledge pressing down on her. "Consider this a warning. Next time, the stakes will be far greater than you can imagine." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving nothing but a static hum in its wake. Chen stood motionless for a moment, the weight of the encounter sinking in. "Commander," Santos' voice was hesitant. "What do we do now?" Chen's gaze hardened. "We prepare." The victory over the Kronex had just been the beginning. They had only scratched the surface of a much darker, more complex threat. The Ascendants were watching, waiting, and they were not the only ones. She wasn't sure what lay ahead, but one thing was clear. Humanity had just become a player on a much larger stage, and the game had only just begun.